So you see the Enterprise going by and you hear that sound, the sound. Whoosh. That sound is not what you think it is. Hi, I'm David Asher Brown. I asked people on my Instagram channel what music from Star Trek they'd like me to talk about the most. And to my surprise and delight, I had a lot of requests to talk about the music from the original series. Now, I originally thought that I would focus on interesting music theory things that are happening, but as I started to dig deeper and deeper into this, I found out so many things that I did not know about the music of Star Trek that has actually completely changed the way that I look at the music. Let's jump in. When the original show was being created, Gene Roddenberry asked composer Jerry Goldsmith to come up with some music for the show. But Jerry Goldsmith was tied up with some scheduling issues, and so he recommended a different composer, Alexander Courage. And while Courage was there to create music for the original series, Goldsmith was called back later on as well to create music for some of the motion pictures. Here's one of the things that made Courage's music so brilliant. If I play these two notes, C and E, and get this sound, the distance between those two notes is called a third. Thirds can be played anywhere on the piano, it's just that distance. So this is a third, this is a third, this is a third. In fact, if I play a major chord like this, it has three notes. And essentially what I have is one third stacked on top of another third. If I play a minor seventh chord like this, I have a third stacked on a third, stacked on another third. In fact, all standard traditional chords in Western harmony are basically just thirds stacked on top of each other. So the third is the building block of just about all of the music that any of us that grew up in the Western world have pretty much ever heard. But Star Trek isn't about the Western world. In fact, it's beyond this world. It's about outer space, and there are aliens. And Courage wanted to create music that sounded like it was from out of this world. So he tried to create this music partially by using a different interval. Fourths. And by the way, if I play a fourth like this, and flip it upside down, that's called a fifth. So fourths and fifths are essentially the same interval. The music for Star Trek is built off of this interval in a pretty fascinating way. In fact, here's a video that I made for Instagram showing just this topic. The time has come for me to make a confession which some of you may find shocking. I am a nerd and I love Star Trek. Can't help myself. In this video, I'm going to share the secret sauce in the Leola root stew that makes Star Trek music sound so alien. The building block of virtually all Western music is the interval of a third. If you play a stack of thirds on the piano, it sounds like this. In fact, every traditional chord in Western music is just a stack of thirds. So to make this music sound like it came from where no one has gone before, composer of the original Star Trek theme music, Alexander Courage, decided to build the music on a stack of fourths, which sounds like this. In fact, the opening interval is a fourth as well. Now what if I were to take that stack of fourths and just move it up? As in... Now, if you're a Trekkie or a Trekker, or your pronouns include holder of the sacred chalice of reeks, this music might not sound too alien to you. But that's just because you've heard it 1701 times. Trust me that if you could go back in time to the very first time you heard this music, it would have sounded unlike all of the other music you had heard. The original series, Next Generation, and Strange New Worlds all use the same original starter music. How about the theme music from Star Trek Voyager? Voyager keeps the fourth, but also flips it upside down to make a fifth. In everything that I'm about to play, only one note stands out from the pattern of fourths and fifths. How about Deep Space Nine? Again, opening with almost entirely fourths and fifths. And then, of course, there's Star Trek Enterprise. We don't talk about Star Trek Enterprise. Now, after this introduction, which features fourths and fifths, we get a different kind of alien-sounding music. Music that sounds like this. Now, before I tell you what's really interesting about this part, let me put some rumors to rest. There is no theremin being used in the original theme music. That melody is performed by a soprano vocalist. But here's what's really interesting that I did not know about. There's a song from the 1940s by Johnny Green called Out of Nowhere, was made famous by Bing Crosby. Alexander Courage knew this music and probably unintentionally created the Star Trek music, which happens to sound a lot like Out of Nowhere. Here's the opening of Out of Nowhere. And here's the opening soprano line from the Star Trek theme music. In the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation, there's an episode called The Big Goodbye. This is the episode where Captain Picard goes into the holodeck, and he goes into one of the Dixon Hills holonovels. It's kind of a film noir detective style episode. But if you listen carefully during that episode, you'll notice that when they're in the holodeck, you can actually hear this music out of nowhere in the background. Here's something else I really loved. Right after the scoring session for the original theme music, Alexander Courage is back in the recording studio with some of the engineers and personnel from the show. And he hears them talking about this problem. They have all of these shots during the opening music where you see the Starship Enterprise go across the screen. Now in real life, if you were in outer space, you're not going to hear a whooshing sound as the ship goes across the screen, but that doesn't make for good TV. So Courage hears people working on the show saying they just don't know what kind of sound to use for that spaceship. They've tried messing around with synthesizers, they've tried some different Foley effects, and they just can't get anything that really fits. So Courage says to them, look, it's not going to cost you anything extra, just give me the microphone and run the picture. He watches for the ship to go by, and right at that moment, he takes the microphone and goes like this. Whoosh! That original sound of the Starship Enterprise is composer Alexander Courage making a whooshing noise with his mouth. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, I hope you'll take a moment to help me out by giving it a thumbs up, and even better, subscribing to my channel so you'll get to see other videos just like this one. Okay, now here's where things got a little bit weird, and I want to preface this by saying that Gene Roddenberry created an amazing television show and became much more than a television show. It's a project that challenged many perceptions and attitudes and inspired an entire generation of future scientists and free thinkers. So what I'm about to say isn't meant to take away from any of those accomplishments. Apparently, after Courage wrote this theme music, Gene Roddenberry wrote his own lyrics to the music, which were never actually used for the show. Some reports even say that Roddenberry never had any intention for those lyrics to make it into the show. But by writing those lyrics, he was able to credit himself as a co-writer of the theme. And that meant that he would receive 50% of the royalties along with Alexander Courage. As you can imagine, this upset Alexander Courage and seriously soured their relationship. And eventually, Courage was replaced by another composer on the show, Fred Steiner. But there is somewhat of a nice ending to this story. Courage came back to score a couple of episodes in the show's final season, and he also orchestrated music by Jerry Goldsmith for the motion picture. As I mentioned, I mostly planned on talking about music theory in this video, but in the process, I couldn't believe how much story there was behind this music. If you'd like me to make another video about some other Star Trek music, please let me know in the comments which one you'd like to see next, because I'd love to explore this topic more. Until then, friends, live long and prosper.